Mahomes does not do that because he's looking to make plays. He's a mercurial talent that has an incredible belief in himself and in his teammates. And when you give Travis Kelce an extra second, when you gave Marquez Valdez-Scantling an extra second or so, look what happened. And when you look at it from that perspective, there was plenty of times that we saw the Cincinnati Bengals having him run for his life and they were in his face, okay? And so you got to take that into consideration because he's going to look to make plays. And in order to do that, the likelihood is that he's not going to wait or rather get rid of the ball inside of 3 seconds on a bevy of occasions. He's just not going to do that. He's going to try to extend plays. He's going to try to make plays, and that's going to give Fletcher Cox and the rest of the crew an opportunity to get at him. Let's also keep this in mind. Last we saw the Kansas City Chiefs in a Super Bowl. We saw them in that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. What did we lament? The fact that Patrick Mahomes was running for his damn life the entire game. The Philadelphia Eagles know what it takes. When we talk about the great, we just started off the show, Keyshawn, talking about the great Tom Brady. Well, when he lost those 2 Super Bowls to the New York Giants, why he lose? Because that front four got at him. That's why. Now, obviously, Patrick Mahomes can scramble a little bit better, a lot better, actually, than Tom Brady. And we get all of that. We understand that. But it doesn't negate the fact that if you apply the pressure, and he's running and he's uncomfortable, that's what has to be your game plan. You can't just sit up there and man up and back up in the coverage and give Patrick Mahomes any kind of time. Their whole strategy for success on the defensive side of the ball is going to be predicated on getting in the face of Patrick Mahomes. So I understand what y'all are saying. Don't get me wrong. I'm just simply saying that I don't think that Patrick Mahomes is going to comply. I think he believes in his offensive line this year compared to what he did 2 or 3 years ago. I think he's going to sit up there and he's going to take a little bit more time on a lot of occasions to throw that football. And I think that's going to give the Eagles pass rush an opportunity to get to him. That's just what I suspect.
You do understand in that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay, his protection was Stephen A. Smith, Herm Edwards, and Keyshawn Johnson.
He had no help.
So he's going to be running for his life against a defense that had hit his stride under Todd Bowles. This is a totally different offensive line. This offensive line is actually much better. This is actually one of the best offensive lines he's had in the 5 years that he's been under Andy Reid.
Was Cincinnati able to get at him a little bit? But they in his face.
But here's what I'm going to tell you about that. It's all about the game planning. Remember what Herm said, San Francisco is built just like Philadelphia to a degree. They got edge rushers. They got people that can push the pocket. They got linebackers that can go sideline to sideline and downhill all at the same time. So your game plan is going to predicate and dictate what you do on the offensive side of the ball. You didn't need to do that against Cincinnati. You didn't need to go into the Cincinnati game saying, I need to do quick game. I need to get the ball out quick. And I understand you're most like all of us, we're so enamored with the off-schedule plays that we've seen in his career. But when he needs to, he sits in the pocket. When he needs to, he delivers the football very quickly and on time in rhythm. Everything is not Harlem Globetrotter basketball on the football field. It's just not. Those are splash plays that we see on First Take, we see on Sports Center. But let's look at some of the stuff that he does do like the traditional quarterbacks.
Well, he can play from the pocket. We saw that this week. He was injured, right? And this is why he's the MVP. I mean, the wounded athlete is something to deal with. We've seen Michael Jordan do it. We saw Willis Reed do it. I'm going back.
If Mahomes didn't even play in this Super Bowl, he said, I'm retiring right now. I'd have him in my top 5 all time.
I just can't.
I got no problem with that.
Okay.
Here's the problem. He has him second to Tom Brady.
That's
and then he has John Elway, Peyton Manning, and Dan Marino. But what he doesn't have, who he doesn't have, is possibly the greatest of all time, Joe Montana. The guy who Tom Brady eventually took the title from as the GOAT due to his longevity, not because he was better at his peak, but longevity, is Joe Montana.
How does Key, wait a second, because I was on First Take yesterday. I did not hear this conversation because I plugged in late.
Clearly, you wasn't paying attention.
Well, no, I don't pay attention until I'm on air.
Yeah.
Why?
Why did I let him get away with that?
What is going on?
I didn't let him get away with it at all. As soon as he broke down the list and unveiled the list of the whole deal, and I looked because in my mind I had already calculated who the QBs were going to be. And, I just let him finish, and I shredded him to pieces. And I just kind of, it was exhausting listening to Dan, and I love Dan. And me and Dan work together every single week, multiple times. And his argument was he never saw Joe play. Joe would pass. He started going to statistics. And you know about statistics in me. I don't care about statistics. Doesn't mean anything. Everybody played at a different era and all of that sort of stuff. They throw the ball all over the lot right now. If I played in this era, I have 18,000 yards in 2 seasons because they throw the ball, no one gets touched. It's a totally different situation. And I tried to explain that to him. He put Marino on this. I'm like, dude, do you not understand that Joe Cool beat Marino, beat him down in the Super Bowl? He combined his Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes threw more in 2 games and this, that, and the other than he had in his 4 Super Bowls. And I'm like, dude, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's 4 and freaking 0. So I tried to give him a different perspective because he claimed he never saw Joe play, but he saw Marino and Elway. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on.
All the winning
if you saw Joe, Dan, and John play, that's the same era.
Right.
Even if you didn't see Joe 2 years before you start watching, it's the same era. So I don't understand how you can have Elway, and he's Elway, I would have him on this list. I'm like, Elway went to so many Super Bowls. Like, stop. And it was like a whole deal. And in the end, I just gave up. And so you may remember this dude, Max. You remember Jeff Katz?
Yeah, of course.
So Katsy, I hadn't talked to Katsy forever.
Film guy who does sports talk radio too, yeah.
And Katsy emailed me. Katsy, he emailed me late last night because I was doing this shoot or whatever here, and he just blankly said, that's the most insane, you fill in the blank, thing I've ever heard in my life. That guy should be, you fill in the blank, immediately. Blankety, 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 blank. I can't believe this is outrageous. Makes 0 sense. Wow.
Hey, I want to get it. Hold on. I want to get it. Let's back up on Montana for 1 second. Because it's easy to say, stats and the game has changed and blah, 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 and go to stats, right? But if you do, you got to know how to look at stats. You look at what he was doing in his era, not just the raw numbers, but where it ranked, right? So perfect in the Super Bowl, 4-0. 13 TDs, no interceptions. But, guys, he led the league in completion percentage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different times. 5 different seasons. He led the league in the West Coast offense and blah, blah. Okay, fine. He benefited from it. Yes, that's part just like Tom Brady benefited from Belichick and vice versa. And this went and Mahomes benefits from Andy Reid and vice versa. He led the league in touchdowns twice, in touchdown percentage twice. And then, the eyeball test. Come on. But here, more than that, you can look at, MVP finishes. Right? He won 2 MVPs. He came in second. I'm looking at it right now once. He came in third one. If you look at the way he was perceived in his era, where he ranked, it was at the top. In addition to the fact that he might be the greatest postseason player in the history of football.
But this is wild to me. So the methodology is that since Dan didn't see it, Key, then, he can't recognize the greatness of it. So I've never seen Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but I know that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is like with Michael Jordan or LeBron James, one of the greatest players to ever play the game. I've never seen Oscar Robinson play the game, but I know Big O is one of the best point guards we've ever had in the history of the league. Right. Just from looking at it and watching tape on it, and that's all Dan Orlovsky does is watch tape.
And on top of that, the gold standard for the position was Joe Montana.
Yes.
Yeah. When you talk about it, before Tom Brady went to 10 and won 7, all we talked about was the greatest quarterback in the history of the game was Joe Cool.
Yeah.
We never said, Dan Marino was the greatest quarterback in the history of the game.
What people did say about Marino
was he had a strong arm. I get all that.
Yes.
He went
and
early.
And maybe if he was in Montana's situation.
I get all of that.
But
like Barry Sanders.
But he wasn't.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And so in the end, Dan got it completely wrong. And on top of that, you got Patrick Mahomes too. Now, if you decided To take Patrick Mahomes and put him at 5 and bump Dan down because he didn't win a Super Bowl and Joe Montana beat him, and it certainly looks like